Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, it's Tom Foster at Fosterwood Marketing calling you from Snowmageddon here in DC. And we are all coming to you on this webinar from various places where we virtually connected, which is pretty cool about what we're able to do with technology. One thing, if anybody could build a snow bomb and drop it on DC, that's all you need to do to take out the government here, because they just closed down even before one drop of snow began. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, we're having a little bit of a technology glitch. I'm not able to see the screen, so Danielle, you're going to have to do your thing, and I'm just going to have to follow along so I can log on and see what you guys are seeing. I want to thank Danielle for putting this webinar together. This is really cool stuff. And Dave Fries, are you here, buddy?
I am. I'm with you.
Thank you, Dave. Brian Beckcom, are you here?
10-4. How you doing, Tom?
All right. How's it going, Brian?
Good.
Brian and Dave, thank you so much for jumping on the call with us. I know that you're very busy attorneys and very successful in your own areas. And we appreciate you getting on this call with us in this webinar to tell other people how do you use breaking news to be successful, and how to, you know, it's more than just keyword ranking, and we're tired of hearing about all that stuff, and I know you guys are far beyond that, and that's like novice, you know, beginner kind of thinking, and you guys are way far beyond that. And so, Danielle, I think that you put together a really good presentation to get us going. So I'm going to just follow along and make my normal color commentary as we go along with it. So Danielle, why don't you go ahead and take it away, and thank you.
All right, great. Hi, everybody. So this is what we're going to go over today. It's our agenda. First of all, we're going to talk about what it actually means to leverage breaking news, and then we're going to explain how you can use breaking news to your advantage. Then we've got about 4 or 5 examples to show you, so you can get some real-life examples, and we've got Brian from BB Attorneys here to talk about some of his examples, and also Dave Fries, so they're going to explain to you how this has helped them. We're also going to talk about measuring breaking news, what you need to look at to know whether or not your breaking news efforts are working for you. And then we've got a couple of resources at the end. All right, so let's get going. So as we said, we have our special guests, Dave Fries and Brian Beckcom, and there's Tom and I.
And if you don't know who Dave Fries is or Brian Beckcom, you need to. Dave Fries is one of our most prolific and successful attorney clients, and he's an estate planning attorney. And you know, some of you might, hey, what's so cool about an estate planning attorney? Well, Dave Fries is one of the coolest guys I know, and he's been able to take a practice that some might look at and say, well, what can you do? How can you make that exciting? How can you make that sexy? And I think it comes down to how many good clients you can get in, and how many cool opportunities with some really neat clients that you can work with. Brian, I mean, Dave, and you work with some really neat clients, right? I mean, I know you can't talk about them, but your range of clientele is pretty impressive.
Yeah, there's some we probably could talk about, but I represent people that range from celebrities to CEOs to CEO celebrities. So, you know, we do use breaking news, weirdly, even in the trust and estates world.
Yeah, so it works no matter what. So you don't have the excuse, well, that won't work in my practice. And if you think that you have some kind of unique practice, then shoot me an email and say, well, what about this? And I'll give you how you can use it. Or, you know, Dave Fries and Brian Beckcom. Brian's been with us forever, it seems, and we have done many things together. But the one real cool thing that we're going to talk about later on is something that's going on in the news right now, and how we have utilized that with Brian and his team. You can do the same thing, and so when we get to that point in our presentation, you're going to see kind of how we leverage that. And of course, Danielle is really the one that pilots these programs. It's her team that makes it all work. She's very, you know, process-oriented, and is very instrumental in making sure that we're doing all the right things for breaking news and teaching you guys how to do it. So. And really, I'm just the guy that adds color commentary at the end, and you know, just everybody forces it along once I start yapping. So, thank you everybody for joining us, and Danielle, let's go ahead and get going.
righty. So here on this slide, we want to talk about what does it mean to leverage breaking news. So basically, when we say this, we want you to use hot news stories, stories that are trending or just starting to emerge in the news, and attach yourself to them and use them to promote your own expertise and your own services. There's another term for this, which is called newsjacking, which you might hear. And again, it's just attaching yourself and your brand and your products or services to a hot news story so you can get exposure yourself. And if the story goes viral, you may find that you benefit from the publicity. And that's what we're going to talk about, how to do that. So here's an example, a graph of the life of a news story. And again, this is from David Meerman Scott, who coined the term newsjacking. And you can see down on the lower left when news breaks, that's the beginning of this cycle. And you want to newsjack as early in the cycle as you can so that you can ride that wave of media and public excitement. So the faster you can jump on it, the better. And this is why we're going to tell you about how time is of the essence. This is not something you want to sit around and mull about doing.
Yeah, because news dies quick. And, you know, not only are people doing searches right away when they hear about something, but the media is also looking for people that they can cite. And so the sooner that you can get out there for a variety of, you know, they're looking for information. They're looking for a variety of sources. And in many cases, they're looking for legal sources. And so they would come to you, you know, going back as far as, you know, Chris Davis and I never remember her name, Danielle, the Natasha, the ski accident. Remember that?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Liam Neeson's wife.
Yes, and forgive me that I don't remember her name. I've only said it 1,000 times, but they, you know, that Anderson Cooper was doing a story on it that night, and he was looking. His producers were looking for credible legal sources to see if there was a case, and they did searching, and they found Chris Davis up in Seattle, and not only that, he had done other brain injury cases. They saw that he had been on the news before. They saw that he could speak well on the news, and also they did more research on him and found his Facebook profile. And on his Facebook, he's got pictures of himself skiing up there with his family. So, I mean, the relevance and credibility to a news organization. So that Anderson Cooper had him on the air that night. You know, sent him to a satellite station, was on the air that night, and as a result of that, that was years ago, and as a result of that, they get the best brain injury cases referred to them, and people call them up all the time. They have to turn them away. And so breaking news is something that will continue to pay for itself over and over again, time and time again, if you do it right. If you do it wrong, then it's going to, or if you do it cheap, it's going to get you what you give. And so invest in this. This is something that works. This is something that you can actually do that generates traffic immediately instead of just hoping and pining away on, you know, keyword ranking and hoping that Google will reward you just by sitting there and doing nothing. This is a way to get traffic generated to your site. And of course, leads get generated from traffic. Okay, I'm done. You're up, Danielle.
I am muted, you're right. How do you use breaking news? So once you've found a story that's relevant to your practice, and Dave, maybe you could speak a little bit about this. How do you find something that's relevant to you? How do you make that determination?
Well, there's a couple of ways that we do it, you know, from a technology standpoint. And I love what you guys have done with this, but we use Google Alerts on a variety of trust and estates topics. So when one of those pops, you know that it's something pretty interesting. So we put in a host of topics. The other thing is that we just watch. You know, for example, I'm not a big TV watcher, but Robin watches Downton Abbey, and Tom and I were just talking about this the other day. Yeah. So since I don't get to see Robin very often, I sit and watch Downton Abbey. And one of the things I noticed was a central character died, and he didn't have a will, and all these people were worked up about what was going to happen, and then a note fell out of a book. So there was this whole question on Downton Abbey that took a big piece of an episode about whether this constituted a will or not. So weirdly, here's a fictional but popular television show talking about a trust in the states issue. So we've created some content which we're just about to post. So we don't have analytics for everybody today because it just happened, and it's going to relate Downton Abbey to whether or not this thing was a will, because it's a really big and important issue when people write stuff on their wills or people write notes and think they're wills, whether they're valid or not. And you'd be surprised how many very wealthy people, this guy was one of them, don't do it the right way. So we've linked all of these ways in which we can talk about and scare people into realizing they've probably made a bunch of mistakes to a popular episode of a popular television show. So it's not even a real news story. But
yeah,
it does
and
resemble
that's an
news.
interesting take, and that's a great example, Dave, for the people on the call, because that's taking pop culture, and we have another example of that a little bit later on. But just news doesn't have to be real, right? I mean, especially something that is it's sensational and such a like as this. I don't watch the show, but my wife does, and a bunch of other people I know exactly what you're talking about when I tell them about it. They're like, yeah. And, as far as they're concerned, it's real. So those people that are paying attention to that stuff will glom onto what you're doing. And so did you have anything else you wanted to add to that before we go?
Well, I would simply say that there are a number of other techniques like trending topics on Facebook and on Twitter that we use and watch. Because a lot of this has to be automated, because I'm not a pop culture guy, and for the most part, I do not watch the news. And you guys have sent me several things, because I'm sure you're using some of these same search techniques that I probably use, but just better and more efficiently than me. So, one of the things that you do for us now is that you alert us through whatever mechanisms you use. So I do my own search through trending topics. I have my own Google alerts, and I have my own experiences when I hear something or somebody tells me or I overhear at a party that this thing is popular again. That alerts me. But then on top of that, you guys are using mechanisms to alert me too. So there's really, I've narrowed it down to maybe 3 or 4 things that I'm looking at periodically, rather than trying to look at 20 or 30 different ones. You just have to make it, you have to make it doable so that you actually do it. If you take all your time looking for news stories, you won't get implementation done.
And so, Danielle, can you bring up the slide where you have the quote from David here for everybody? And, I mean, this is really what you're saying, Dave.
Yep, exactly. Did I say that? That sounds way more intelligent.
Yes, you said it. It was
okay.
A beautiful quote that we got from you when you were pontificating on the stage at some point. So then I would like to, it's really, it's really just discussing what's going on, whether people are interested that are related to what your practice is. It's not that sophisticated or like, it's more like a duh, a forehead slap on what to do. And like I said, okay, so Dave gave one example of how he's used it for his estate planning to talk about wills. And, there's always stuff in the news about contested wills, and there was actually a show on ID channel about contested wills. There's all kinds of that stuff going on. And it doesn't have to necessarily be, well, and Dave, you might argue against this, but I don't really need to think, it doesn't need to be something that's happened current right now. You can talk about old contested wills and bring it up again, right? Things that have happened.
Oh, yeah. Whenever there's a will contest, we always go back to Elvis, and we go back to,
right.
To these other famous will contests. And whenever there's a really interesting thing in a will of a celebrity that's revealed, we go back to Jackie O, where that was true. So we always, rehash those issues. And, there's an important point in this quote and that we're talking about here. I'm doing this, and I'm attaching to news stories that are going to appeal to my kind of client. Like, my kind of client is more likely to watch Downton Abbey than, somebody that's not a perfect client. So that's a pretty good place for me to go to, to link myself to a story.
And you said that a couple times, and we always say that, and you're going to hear that as a common theme, everybody that listens to us, about, you're a perfect client, because part of the goal for your marketing should be honing down in sniper shot, instead of having a shotgun approach to everything, but really targeting and focusing on who your perfect client is. And so Dave knows who his perfect client is and knows what they're interested in, so he can market directly to them. So Dave, just give me your quick, who's your perfect client?
Well, that's another thing that I should say to everybody. You might have more than one, but in the trust and estates planning area where we do sophisticated estate planning, the perfect client is between the ages of 52 and 65. And there's a lot of reasons why that's true. They live in only certain zip codes, which are all within 8 miles of one of our offices. People just don't like to travel further than that to do all of these documents. They are married with children or grandchildren, or they were married with children and grandchildren, so that they could be divorced. They have a net worth between $2 million and $20 million. Now, we have people that have smaller estates, and we have people that have much larger estates, but the sweet spot's right in there. So we know a lot about them, and we know where they go, and we know what they're interested in. And one of the things that helps us with this sort of thing, too, is with Facebook advertising. This helps us with the breaking news. We can now upload a data set of our clients who we really like and we like working with, and it'll give us a match with other people that share those same kind of criteria, and then we can see what people like and what they're interested in, and that's been very, very helpful to us. So that tells us what sort of news stories we should be paying attention to. And the other thing I've noticed, because I use social media as an intelligence gathering tool, so we monitor a lot of our clients that are on there. And one of the things I noticed was that a lot of them comment on this Downton Abbey show. So it was like a natural when I saw that, that will contest on there. I already knew it was going to be a hit. So I think, we'll see, but I think the analytics should be good on this. So.
Yep. Well, and you're being proactive, and that's good. And speaking of proactive, let's jump to my buddy down in Houston, Dave Fries. And so, Danielle, if you could bring up the example one. I mean, Brian Beckcom is like a celebrity attorney for Fosterwood Marketing right now. And no offense to you, Dave. You usually hold that
Brian
part.
is a celebrity attorney to everybody.
Isn't he? All right. So, I mean, with a name like Beckcom, right? That's like Magnum PI, but better. Beckcom. Anyway, I digress. But if you guys don't know, Beckcom and his firm represents the crew of the Maersk, Alabama, that's in the Captain Phillips movie. And Brian, why don't you go ahead and just explain a little bit about what you can talk about with your involvement with this Captain Phillips case. And then we'll talk about what we've done to support this. Let everybody know what happened and how we got involved.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, I got to say, Dave Fries is the coolest wills and estates lawyer that I've ever met.
That's interesting.
And seriously, and if you're listening to this webinar, you ought to follow Dave on Twitter and Facebook. And you know, Dave's got some materials he's written about raising kids and persuasion and things of that nature. I've got all of them, and they're really worth it. And so I would encourage you, if you're listening to this webinar and you're interested in that sort of thing, to follow Dave on Twitter and on Facebook and get his materials. He's got some really great stuff. Anyway, so here's kind of the quick backstory. The Maersk, Alabama, which is a container ship, is attacked by Somali pirates about three and a half years ago. And it was all over the news at the time. And the Navy SEALs end up coming in and taking out the pirates. And the captain, a guy named Richard Phillips, the captain of the boat, is hailed as a hero. Well, I get a call a month or so after the event happened from one of the crew members. And he without getting into all the details, the basic story I get is that what is being told on the news is not the real story. So long story short, he asked me to represent him and his fellow crew members in a case against the shipping company for putting the ship into pirate-infested waters. And what we've since learned, a lot of the stuff that's happened in the case is under seal, and I can't talk about. But what we've learned during the development of the case is essentially the ship should not have been, they were told not to go where they went. This was a hot spot of pirate activity and went there anyway. So we filed this case about 3.5 years ago in Houston, Texas. It goes on for 2.5 years. The shipping company fights us tooth and nail, appeal to the Texas Supreme Court twice, try to go to federal court. We beat them every step of the way, and then about August, September of last year, and I knew this beforehand, but I knew about a year ago there was going to be a movie coming out about the event starring Tom Hanks as Captain Phillips. And so I was obviously concerned. You know, Tom Hanks, one of the, if not the most liked man in America, then, you know, one of the most liked people in America. And I was really concerned that once this movie came out and told the story that I knew it was going to tell about how the captain was heroic, that it was going to hurt my clients, the crew members, court cases. So I made an effort in front of the judge to push these cases to trial before the movie was released, because I was really concerned about the publicity surrounding the movie. And the boat company, they did everything they could to delay the court date for the opposite reason I wanted to push it, because they wanted to obviously benefit from the publicity they were going to get out of this movie. So they ended up winning that argument. We didn't get to go to court before the movie came out. Thank goodness, in retrospect, because shortly before the movie was premiered, I was driving home from work in Houston, Texas on the highway about 5:30, and I get a call on my cell phone from the producer of Good Morning America. And she says, "Hey, is this Brian Beckcom?" And I say yes, and she tells me who she is, and she says, we found a copy of the lawsuit you filed, and it looks like there may be more to the story than is being shown in this movie, and we want to interview you and get your guys' side of the story. And I said, okay, sure, when do you want to do it? And she said, how about an hour from now? And I said, okay, where are we going to do it? She said, well, we're going to come to your house. And she knew my address. They have a very good research department at Good Morning America. So I call my wife and say, honey, Good Morning America is going to be in our living room in about an hour. And so she kind of freaked out and was worried about the house being dirty and all that sort of thing. But long story short, they show up at my house, the Good Morning America film crew. The image that Tom's showing on the screen right now is actually the interview at my house. And I do an interview about the movie and how the movie basically doesn't tell the real story of what happened. And, you know, before I know it, I'm getting calls from Nightline, I'm getting calls from 60 Minutes, I'm getting calls from the New York Post, I'm getting calls from the London tabloids. I do interviews with Nightline, I do interviews with CBS This Morning, the biggest radio show in Los Angeles, and we've kind of been able, even though this movie is going to get all sorts of Oscar buzz. It's a great movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it. It's fiction, but it's a great movie. Even though they've got this massive Hollywood publicity behind the story, we were able, frankly, with Tom Foster and his team's help, and we all spent a lot of time on this in October and November, we were able to get our side of the story out in the public. And one thing I'll say about this is I was a little reticent about taking on Tom Hanks and Hollywood. I was a little concerned about how that might come off. But the great thing about the Internet and Tom's website that he's done for us and social media is, you know, a 7-person law firm, a 7-lawyer law firm like mine in Houston, Texas, with Tom Foster's help, we were able to get the other side of the story out there, even though they spent, Hollywood spent millions of dollars promoting this movie. It made $35 million, I think, the first 2 days that it was released. But the story has now become, in large part, you know, this movie is a good movie, but it's not really based on reality. And I'll tell you a quick story. There was an interview with Tom Hanks after the movie came out, and somebody asked Tom Hanks, they were interviewing him on the red carpet, and they said, hey, is this movie that you've made, this Captain Phillips movie, is this true? And Tom Hanks, and I'm watching this interview, and he says, well, there's a lot of verisimilitude in the movie. And, you know, I like to think that I have a reasonably good vocabulary, but I didn't know what that word meant, so I looked it up, and what the word means is it's kind of true. It's not true, but it's kind of true. So the point of that is even Tom Hanks kind of bought into or believed our side of the story. So in terms of how this will help people that want to attach themselves to breaking news, and I mean, we saw, and Tom has the exact numbers, but there was an absolute explosion of visitors to our website when this movie came out. And you know, Tom talked earlier in the presentation about forget about SEO and keywords and stuff, and one of the things that attaching your firm's name or your name to these breaking news stories, one of the things this does is, and this is a really important point that Tom made to me, instead of people searching for Pennsylvania wills and estates lawyer, or instead of somebody searching for personal injury lawyer for crew members, what this does is all of a sudden the keyword becomes, and Tom, you know the answer to this question, the keyword becomes your name, Dave Freeze or Brian Beckcom or whoever you are, and once people start searching for you by name, then you know you and your web people have done a good job of attaching, of basically branding yourself. And when you do that, you don't really have to worry about SEO or keywords or anything like that. So that's kind of the basic story of the Captain Phillips case, and just a couple other small points. So when I did the video for Good Morning, I don't have any media training. You know, I'd been on TV once or twice on the local news, but because I had done so many videos already for our website with Tom and Jim Folliard and in our own video studio, and I told Tom and Jim this afterwards, I said I had already been, when Good Morning America was there, I wasn't nervous. I was able to get my points across, and so the point there is when people want to, people that are listening to this call, if you want to attach yourself to the news and get on TV and things of that nature, I think it's a good idea to do the groundwork ahead of time, to shoot video, and to have that infrastructure in place so when the news does hit and you do get a call from Dan Rather, it's not the first time you've ever been on TV. So anyway, and
that's a great point. That's a great point.
And the other thing I'll say is we actually on Wikipedia there's a link to our website when somebody looks for the Captain Phillips entry on Wikipedia, and when you get a link from Wikipedia, that's a big-time signal to Google that people searching for that sort of term, you're the authority on that term. So there's all sorts of benefits that come out of this sort of thing, and Tom, your team did a great job of helping us with all this, and we're actually, I can't get into the details of this right now, but we're actually, Tom and I are working on another case that we think is going to be similar to the Captain Phillips case in terms of the notoriety and the publicity and the public interest and things of that nature. And we've already done it once before, so we kind of know what works and what doesn't.
And also, let's talk about the Greyhound thing that happened almost, on the heels of all this Captain Phillips. Can we talk about that, Brian?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things, and this is just the way people's brains work, and Dave probably knows more about this than I do, but if people see that you've written a book or that you're on TV or that you're in the newspaper for some specific event, then they automatically associate you as an expert or an authority in that topic area. So one of the things that my firm focuses on is larger, more complex personal injury type cases. So shortly after the Captain Phillips story broke, there was a massive wreck of a Greyhound bus in Pennsylvania, of all places, and we started getting calls from people that were injured on that bus, and we think part of the reason for that is, if people see that you have done these kind of bigger, newsworthy type items, then whether it's a pirate attack or it's a Greyhound bus crash or it's a plane explosion or whatever it is, they're going to look to you as kind of an authority on these kind of larger cases. So there's a lot of spillover effects that can happen that are beneficial from attaching yourself or being attached. I mean, we didn't plan this out ahead of time, but it happened this way. Being attached to these news stories, you get a lot of positive spillover effects.
And Brian,
that's a great way to say it too, Brian, the spillover effect. And I mean, the reason why is because you guys have had a Greyhound case, a North Carolina case years ago that your partner Vuk had written content about, and your partner is like all over DSS all the time, adding good content. And so are you, but Vuk loves doing that stuff. And it at the same time that we were working on this Captain Phillips stuff, this Greyhound accident happened, and you started getting attention because of the case result. And we just embellished on that, and you got a lot of attention. That was a whole different thing. And to your point, yeah, people came. And remember, when we were talking about it, those people that initially contacted you were impressed by the fact that you were going up against Hollywood and, Captain Phillips and all those things that we talked about. I mean, it really shows that this is how any firm, doesn't matter how big you are, you just need to, this is using, what we call guerrilla marketing tactics to go after the big things. There's no reason why you can't do the similar kind of thing. I mean, that's what happened. So they went there and they're like, wow, these guys are going up against Captain Phillips in Hollywood. That's the kind of guy I want, protecting me. And that's the same is true of this new opportunity that we can't really talk about. That was presented because of what the Captain Phillips relationship and how this other opportunity, I don't even, I'm just choosing my words carefully, Brian, but how they came to be. And that's really how you just got to get started doing this and start attaching yourself to this, and it just continues to flow, by creating good, relevant content that people find compelling and showing, hey, listen, I've done this before. This kind of big case is nothing to me. And what else Brian was saying about, your brand. I mean, Johnny Cochran was a lawyer for however long, and what is he known for? He's known for OJ, and his legacy continues on long after his demise. And the same thing can be true of you if you do this correctly.
Yeah, and Dave, like for Dave Freeze, for people that aren't personal injury lawyers, I mean, Downton Abbey, I love that show. Matthew is the one who died, and anybody who watches that show, I mean, that's a big deal to you. And, if Dave Freeze is the guy talking about this, and this is important to me, and I happen to be looking for a wills and estates lawyer, well, heck, I mean, this is a guy I've got a lot in common with already, and this is a guy that I want to talk to. So,
right.
it's not just in the personal injury context. I mean, you can do this in any practice area.
And something, Tom, that you help us to do and that I think we do well is to create this upward spiral of media attention. So something Brian is awesome at doing is using the fact that he's been exposed in the media before, and both of us have had the experience when we get media of being relatively good at it because we spend all that time in your studio, so you've prepped us, which was a great point Brian made. But here's the thing. When people see that we've been on TV, that we've been interviewed on these newsworthy topics, and in Brian's case, you know, that it's high, super high profile, there's two positive effects that come from that. One is the direct effect on the prospect and the client, you know, for retention, where they see, gee, you're getting exposure, I'm going to stick with that guy, and the prospect because they see Brian's going up against Captain Phillips. But the other thing is, Brian and I are both more likely nationwide or in our own markets to get more media attention. Why? Because producers want somebody that's good and smooth on TV, gets it that you're there to support them and to create something newsworthy and interesting. You're not going to ramble on. So when they see repeated appearances on multiple television shows and radio shows, which Brian and I are constantly putting out there that we've done, when they're sort of scanning through the resources and who they want to go interview, both of our bodies of work, all these videos we have up, and the fact that we've been on media before, begets more media attention. So you get the effect that we've all been describing with the clients and prospects, but you get the effect with the producers and the writers, which is a very good thing and it makes you magnetic to media. They're more likely to approach you. I mean, Brian got that call from them, and now he's able to leverage that even more. So more national media is more likely to come to him. And you saw that with Chris Davis, too. Chris gets lots of media attention in his local affiliate market because he's done national media. So they, you know, he makes a good impression. So he's a go-to guy, just like Brian is a go-to guy in our own media markets now. Brian in a national media market, but Chris Davis and I certainly in you know, like our local media market. So you can, when you get this, you can use it, and it makes it easier to get it and use it in the future. And Brian, if you look back at his stuff, does a great job of doing that.
So
well,
let's move on. Go ahead, Brian.
One quick point that I think, I mean, that I didn't realize before this Captain Phillips stuff exploded was that the news people, whether it's TV, whether it's radio, whether it's newspapers, whatever it is, that their product is, at least their product is information, and the way they put that information out there is, you know, the written word and people on TV. And so I guess I didn't realize this at the time, but I didn't have to search out these media. After a while, I didn't have to search out the media people. They were searching us out. They wanted us to be their product. So, you know, it was actually kind of fun because I would have, you know, Australian 60 Minutes, and I would have the London Sunday Times, and they would basically be bidding against each other for an exclusive story with me about the case. So in other words, after a little while, I didn't have to do anything at all, like Dave was saying. They would start coming to us, and then there's that snowball effect where, I mean, you don't have to reach out to them anymore. They reach out to you.
Right, and that's a great point. And that's building on your celebrity and your brand. And so, you know, but what about us mere mortals, you know, the rest of us out there that aren't, you know, Brian Beckcom or Dave Fries or Chris Davis. So Danielle, let's talk about some of the things that, you know, that we recommend that anybody can do to get started to get breaking news out there and get, you know, relevant searches to their site or the phone to ring.
Well, one of the reasons we led with Brian's example is it's the most you could hope for, you know, having a hit Hollywood movie relevant to your business. That's the most you could hope for, which allows us to talk about all the different things that can go into your breaking news. Because depending on what kind of breaking news you attach yourself to, you may not need all of these things. We've got 10 things listed here up on the screen, and we can run through it quickly. And you may just need a subset of these, or you may need all of them. But these are things for you to think about as you start leveraging those news stories. First of all, you want to make sure that you, your marketing people, and the folks in your office have talking points. This is just so that you as a brand, as a business, have a consistent message. And this is something we worked with Brian and his team on, making sure we all understood the message we were trying to get out anytime we did social media or content or talk to the media. You know, it's very important that you all understand your spin on the story. This is a great thing for you to practice doing. You also, depending on the type of news, can do a press release, and we ourselves use PR Web. There are a lot of free press release sites out there. You just want to be careful because a lot of them will put ads for competing. We've seen, for example, if we do a press release for an attorney, we'll see a competing attorney's ad on the free sites because that's how they make their money. So just be mindful if you use those free sites, they may come with some strings attached. So like I said, we use PR Web.
Yeah, so pay for the good press release. Yeah, pay for the good one.
You can also do video, and again, just like everyone's been saying, this is a great way for you to practice being in front of the camera, should you ever have the opportunity to do that, and it also allows people to put a face to your message.
And just to point to that, Danielle, about video, when we're saying video, we don't mean just video with your iPhone or, you know, your video camera from your Mac there. You want to have a professional video because that's what the news people will see. And if it looks hokey or amateur, that's how they're going to think of you, and they're going to move on, and they're going to find a professional-looking person. So make sure that you have professional video to portray your speaking ability and getting in front of the camera ability. And if you have a voice or if you have a face for radio, then get a spokesmodel to shoot your videos. You have to have videos to represent you. You can still be the speaker behind it, but obviously getting you in front of the camera is the most important thing. And to Brian's points, you know, when you got that call and you got an hour to get ready for 60 minutes to come to your house, that's pretty nerve-wracking. And fortunately, Brian had some experience and had some knowledge of how to do it after doing hundreds and hundreds of videos. And then of course content, right, Danielle? I mean, the foundation of everything.
Yes, and you can, and when you're talking about a hot news story, don't just repeat the news. Anybody can do that. You really want to offer your take on it. You know, remember, you are the expert in the subject. That's why you're talking about this. So offer your take and offer your opinion. Give people something new to think about, or give them a different way to think about it. Show them your experience. And of course, related cases you've handled yourself. That shows that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so senior content. I mean, to Danielle's point, I think I just saw something about Obama saying that marijuana was no worse for you than alcohol. Now, that's kind of newsworthy for people that deal in that area. We were just on a call earlier today with John Keith, who had just done some blog posts about the Surgeon General talking about smoking. These are things that are sensational to certain people. And so creating pieces of content which are informative and opinionated draws different people into those different funnels. So you don't want to just do one blog post about it and say, oh, well, I did it and it didn't work. That only goes down one path. You want to do library articles, frequently asked questions, videos, press releases as we've got here. If you've got other case results, like for instance, we're just talking about that Greyhound case that they got, that Brian's firm got. They had added content about a past case that happened years ago, and that was the beginning lead in terms of the search that got that particular person to the website. Then they saw, oh, wow, they're involved in this Captain Phillips thing, and they're like, wow, if they're doing this, then they can definitely handle Greyhound, and they've done it before. So think of all those things. Think of the stuff that you've done in your past. It doesn't need to be right now. So just think of all those things. And, of course, your social media.
Right. And, again, following your points, you have your consistent message and consistent voice.
And I just want to say this real quick about social media. I know we're running out of time, as usual. But social media is the biggest thing that attorneys like to ignore and is the #1 referral source that we see across the board. You know, we do almost 400 attorney websites, and we see data come through that and where the most consistent conversion and the most consistent good lead comes from social media referral networks. So don't ignore that. If you have been ignoring it, you're just leaving money on the table and giving it to your competitor.
Number 6 here is the press kit, and it's very easy for you to do an online press kit. You can check out the one on Brian's site that we did for him, and this just makes an easy way on your website for the press to get information, or anyone else to get information about your bio, get a summary of your stance on the case. You know, if it's a big enough news story, you may want to consider doing this and pull together some relevant information that's easy for people to find on your site. You also, number 7, want to start, this is something you can do right now, start cultivating a media list. You know, get to know the people in your local market. You don't have to go after the big boys. We're talking about your local market, the newspapers, the radio, the TV stations. Start getting to know the different journalists out there and what types of stories they cover and what they might be interested in. Start pulling together a media list so you have that before you really need it. You can also do retargeting ads. This is something we did with Brian and his team. They have the link, thetruthaboutcaptainphillips.com, so people who visited their site to read about the Captain Phillips case then got retargeting ads, encouraging them to get more information. You can also do targeted Facebook ads, and I think Dave mentioned this earlier. This is a great thing to try out because right now it's not too expensive.
And we've found it to be pretty effective.
Yeah.
And
then
you can
commenting on news stories, yep, and blogs, and getting link backs, and as Brian pointed out, getting that Wikipedia link back to the site is huge, and so that's a big part of it. That's that's really just referred here to, and commenting on news stories and blogs, and getting other links back to that will only help you even more.
All right, so we're short on time, but we do want to hear from. We've got some other examples that aren't as high profile. Let's say you don't have a Hollywood movie. And in Dave's case, Dave, I believe a new Pennsylvania law took effect, and nobody was really talking about it. So this was important to you and your clients, but nobody was talking about it, and you made it into news. You want to tell us a little about that?
Yeah, this is another angle you can come from. If the news doesn't leap out at you, you can see stuff that they aren't covering and they should be. So you can make a big deal about it on your own website and things, but that's like a push strategy. You're trying to push this stuff out there. You still want a pull strategy. You still want to attract people kind of magnetically. So what we would do is we did a bio on me. We did an article, kind of a press release on this, coupled with an article on this new law. And then we went to business magazines in the area and to other places where we knew people would be interested in this because their readers are. And we've got a whole bunch of media attention on this now. So we went out to contact them, and of course what I want to emphasize to everybody is if you haven't done a lot of media before, then in the press kit you're going to send to them or the news release you're going to send to them, you're not going to say, as seen on CNN. But the first time you get some attention from the media, the next piece that's going to go out, like I'm regularly interviewed on NPR and PBS. So every press kit that goes out or every news release says that I'm available to talk about this. And that I've been interviewed on NPR and PBS. So that makes me look like a way better bet for some writer or some producer or some editor that's got a lot of pressure on them. I'm a better bet than somebody that doesn't have that credential. So the first thing you want to do is get the credential, and then the next thing you want to do is always tout the credential. And that conflicts sometimes, at least on the surface of it, with things that you've heard us say, which is it's not all about you. But you do need to tell your story. You just have to tell your story in a way that makes it important for them. So you could say in a news release, if you want an authority that has experience and been interviewed by CNN and whoever, then then this is a place you could go to get that on this overlooked piece of legislation that's really vitally important to businessmen. Now, here's the thing. This piece of legislation has to do with business. It doesn't have to do with trusted estates planning on the surface. But there's a way that if you structure the businesses the right way, you could save 4.5, 12, or 15% inheritance tax. So you have to present this the right way. You've got to think about it. You've got to go to them and say, well, these business people, strategically, I said these business people are all really good prospects. They all need this other stuff. If you've got a successful business and you could pay, whether or not you can pass it on tax-free, you at least now know me as somebody that's thinking about business people in the area of estate planning. So this has been very successful for us even though lots of people can't take advantage of this law because it's got a lot of technical restrictions when they come to see us, we also say, well, even though you don't qualify for this, does your will protect your daughter so that she doesn't lose this business in a divorce if you pass away and she inherits it? No, it doesn't. Well, boom. Now we are still going to do business there. So there's a lot of advantages of making news.
Yeah. So like here's the slide kind of shows some of the activities that happen as a result of you doing that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you stirred up business from your own clientele, right?
Yep.
And upsell them with other services.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's no reason any lawyer that's listening to this can't do this with their own practice. You know, if you're a personal injury lawyer and you got somebody hired you to do such and such, then you could talk about another kind of case where they might be like, oh, my cousin or my uncle, my aunt has that need right now. It does, you know, family law, this can relate to anything. You just need to think about, how can I tap into this and be interesting? Forget keywords, forget SEO, forget anchor text, forget Virginia personal injury lawyer, or Pennsylvania state planning lawyer. Or
Yeah, because people weren't looking for that stuff here.
Yeah, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for answers to their questions. That's what your good clients are looking for. So get off the seduction of vanity keywords and how that saps you, that snake oil, that's medicine man. This is the way to get the cases that you're looking for. These are real examples of how you bring in the kind of stuff that you want to do in your practice instead of like rifling through a bunch of junk that you don't want to do. Let the other guys do that, but you be different. And this is how
By
you
the way,
learn how to do
Tom,
it.
we made this news in our own newsletter. So we sent a newsletter out to 4,000 people saying this. And this, you know, at the time you and I talked, it might have been 2 clients. We've definitely gotten probably 10 now. I couldn't tell you whether it was 6 or 10, but lots of work has come in. And I think at this point, none of the people that called about that ended up qualifying for that, but every one of them is happy. Like, of all the people that called from this article that we published in our own newsletter, every one of them has done something. So if they called, they've come in and done something.
It works. Okay, Danielle, let's show the next one because this is another example. And this is one of the first ones that we did a while ago, and it was a success right out of the gate. And we didn't even do as much as we do now for these breaking news, but this was back in the Penn State sex abuse scandal hit. That right there is the video, and that's an unfortunate splash screen of our spokesmodel, who's a great actor, by the way. Damien, it's not Damien Millard. Damien Millard is a sex abuse and personal injury attorney in Sarasota. And the Penn State scandal hit, and we talked about it with Dave and said we should do a breaking news or let's shoot a video. And we did a couple other things, shot a video and did a couple blog posts. And as a result, let's show the next screen, Danielle. As a result of our oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The reason I showed this screen is to show all the elements that they have on the page here. They've got the relevant video that they shot about the Penn State scandal. The script that we wrote in here proved. We've got an easy way for people to contact him with the form and the phone number. You've got the content right underneath. And then he also has a relevant offer right here on the page so people can, if they're not ready to call him, at least they can download his book about child sex abuse. So it's, you know, there's a lot. He's got all the elements here to capture and convert leads.
That is a great point, and I'm glad you slowed me down and pointed that out, Danielle. Thank you. The devil's in the details, and that is a great, very, very important point, is that everyone focuses on bringing the traffic in, and so many people fail on the conversion of that traffic. They think that just because, you know, you're on page 1, and most of us think this way, you're on page 1, that's how you're going to, that people are going to automatically call you just because you're there. But Danielle just pointed out a couple of great things, is that you want to land them on something that is related to what they've seen out there and offers them other opportunities to contact you besides just free consultation. I mean, in the case of this particular, well, can we show the next slide now? There we go. All right. So our client there, Damien Millard, received a call within days after we did this campaign. The client was local in Sarasota, whose children she was concerned had been involved in a sex abuse at a local, well-known, established private school. And when she saw, but she was afraid to say anything. And it had happened maybe a couple of weeks or a month. I can't remember the exact date. But when she saw the Penn State scandal, when that story broke, she was like, oh my gosh, if that happens at Penn State, that can happen anywhere. And she went and did some searching, and guess what? She found video and content and ended up calling up Damien. He signed the case, and, you know, it's still early yet, but according to Damien, you know, it's a six-figure case, and I know how you guys talk. So that means something to some people and means something to other people. But in the end, that is a win-win for a very small investment. That is great return on investment. I think that probably cost him about $3,000 for us to do it. So do the math there. That's a good way to get in good leads, good cases, instead of pining away and hoping that Google's going to, you know, find you in a sea of other attorneys when everybody's like trying to try to get the same thing for Sarasota personal injury attorney. Anyway, so this is a great way to do it, and this is a reflection of how it works.
And Michelle McGregor, Tom, who works with Damien, said that they got the hit off that breaking news blast within a week of its release. Yeah. So that goes to talk about the speed at which some of these things can come in.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That was our Mike Knademan, who and Michelle works for Damien. And yeah, we work with Damien and Michelle just like we work with Brian to help make sure that they're staying in front. And there's another one, right? There's the Boy Scout case too, Danielle. Yeah, this is Damien right here. Go ahead and talk a little bit about that, Danielle.
Right, Damien was featured in the local news outlets about a Boy Scout sex abuse story. And again, he's been featured in the media before, and this just gives him more exposure. So when this happened, we helped with content and promoting these videos and these news stories. So again, it's just giving you traction. So once you're able to attach yourself successfully to one or more news stories, you'll find that it just kind of snowballs.
And to your point earlier about your media list, so Danielle, on our list, one of the things that you want to start to cultivate is your media list. These are your media contacts, and that list is like gold. And so if Damien's got a case or you've got a case that's worthwhile, then you have a list of media sources, you can send them this information. Just like, you know, we've said, they're hungry, and like what Brian said earlier about, you know, you're their product. News people need to find people to help them tell their story. And so who are they going to go to? I mean, like Damien Millard, you know, the local news people are going to, let's call Damien. He's always got something good to say about this stuff, so let's call him up. It's easy for them, and it helps you. So you want to start, you know, building these relationships. Don't abuse the relationships. Don't send them everything, but utilize those relationships for your benefit. It benefits them, and it benefits you.
And I also want to point out, I've always been surprised when we get on calls with clients and we ask them if they've been mentioned in the media at all, and they're like, oh yeah, I've been on this radio show, I was on TV a couple weeks ago, and they're not talking about it. So you want to remember, any time that you have media exposure, you want to talk about it on your website and your social media, because that's part of building your brand and branding yourself as somebody who's out there, and the media has taken the time to speak with you about it. So make sure that you promote those things yourself.
Okay, and then we have a funny little example, right?
That's right.
Okay, now, this is
So this
hilarious.
is a little more culture.
Yes, this is pop culture, and that's our friend Miley Cyrus there. And this is an example. Andrew Schneider is one of our doctor clients. I don't know if Andrew's on the call, but he's one of our most prolific do-it-yourself doctor clients that loves DSS and just is always adding content. And he signs up about 7 new patients a day, according to him, based on content that he adds to his website. And he adds content, and he has a blog writer. And this is right after Miley did this thing. So go to the next screen, Danielle.
Well, actually, I want everybody, I picked this picture for a reason. I want you to look at what she's wearing on her feet, because, of course, we're talking about a foot specialist here. So you see her nice, comfy shoes? So what Andrew did is he talked about Miley, and he asked, when he posted to social media, and he's quite prolific, said, what's the one thing that Miley Cyrus did right at the MTV Music Awards? And, of course, everybody who's heard nothing but bad things about Miley Cyrus wanted to know, what on earth did she do right? I didn't think she did anything right. And he did a whole blog post about the shoes that she was wearing and how it was a good thing that she was wearing comfortable shoes for that very acrobatic performance, if you will.
Yes, and he does that stuff. He posts on Howard Stern when Howard Stern broke his toe. I don't remember her name, but there was some reality star. I can't remember her name. I don't know any of this stuff. But she was like weightlifting in high heels or something, so he did a post about that. But that's really just taking what people are interested in and attaching it to you. So it's a very simple way to do it. And he gets attention. And the more provocative you can be, the more attention you're going to be. And you want to write your headlines so they're interesting. You want to draw them in. And there's a whole other lesson on how to do that. And Brian, your point about Dave Freese, he's a great mentalist. And one of the teaching points that Dave has taught me over the years is, pick up those cosmopolitan magazines, those glamour magazines, Us, People, all those big name magazines that spend millions on usability and headline testing, because you'll notice the common theme to all those headlines. That's designed to get you to open up that, to pick it up off the grocery store shelf and open it up, or take it home with you and read it. They're not going to tell you everything on the front page there. They want you to pick it up and read it. And it's no different than what you're doing on the web. You just want them to click on it. And so those headlines that you're putting out there in social media or on your blog posts, you want them to be designed to be clicked on. So, hear about my new personal injury case victory is not exciting. And so you need to, add some color in there and make your stuff more exciting. And that's what promotes, less bounce rate and promotes people staying around and getting, involved in you and paying attention to you. Okay, and so then what's the big thing that you got to do, Danielle, always when you're doing this stuff? Yeah.
Sure.
Measuring. I mean, listen, and Dave, oh my gosh, Dave, how many conversations have we had about measuring when we put campaigns together? So many. Anybody, any business. Dave, you can
doesn't matter what we think. Right. Ultimately, it only matters if it works.
Exactly. And we, and that's what we always do. You and I might be like arguing about what long copy or short copy or this headline or that headline. What do we end up saying? Well, let's test it. Let's test it. Because you might have a certain opinion about how it needs to be, and that might appeal to people that relate to you. But your perfect client might not relate to your opinion about things at all. You don't even know that. And so you want to kind of test things, because slight tweaking in a headline or changing a picture or anything along the way could make dramatic improvements in your results, right?
And that's why I always try to develop a control, and then try to beat it. And I think that even has a place here. When we do something with media or with social media, and we do something with breaking news, it doesn't mean that we should do it exactly the same way every time. It means that should be our new standard, and we should start to, especially if we try that once or twice and we know it works, that way of doing it, then we should experiment to see if we can make something work better.
Yep. So Danielle, let's move on to the next slide as we're going over time here and talk about how we can measure stuff. Talk about this a little. This is 592% is good no matter what.
Right, so you're putting content up on your site, and of course you have Google Analytics on your site, so you want to take a look and see if you are getting additional traffic to existing pages that talked about that topic, and you also want to see if those new pages that you put up are getting any traffic. Here's an example we used from one of our clients. Their existing pages, they had a lot of content on their site about child sexual abuse, and we found that their traffic shot up 592% after doing a breaking news blast. So we were able to see which pages were popular, which pages were getting traffic, and that just lets you see what's interesting to people and see what spin on the topic is doing better. Because you may find that some content you've had out there for years or months is suddenly gaining people's interest. So that's something you need to know to better inform your future efforts. You also want to see if those new pages that you've put up, see if they're getting traffic and if they're adding to your overall average traffic numbers. So this is just for you to look at and see what's working and what isn't. You may find that some of the pieces you put up just aren't working, but you want to take a look in analytics and figure that out. Press
yeah,
releases.
You don't want to just leave it to chance. That's the point. You want to, your website should be the funnel through which everything flows, so you can utilize your Google Analytics to observe and make adjustments. And that should be true of anything. I mean, if you do a commercial, make sure that you have a unique phone number that you can measure calls from that commercial. That should be true no matter what marketing you're doing. You need to measure it, because if you just have it going to your same, if you have it just going to your same phone number, you don't know what's working. And so how do you know what to stop doing or to do more of if it's all just doing the same thing? And so you want to be able to measure all these pieces and parts. If you have a billboard out there, you want to be able to measure that. Okay. And absolutely,
if you don't measure it, it doesn't matter.
Right. And what's interesting is we just got a call from a client that's got a breaking news opportunity that we're going to meet with at 2:30 about something that's going on. So this stuff is constantly happening, and there's so much of this that you can do yourself. If you don't know or you don't want to do it yourself, we can help you. But just don't do it. Don't just rely and try to do pay-per-click and all that stuff like everybody else is doing. That's such the expensive way to go. Anyway, let's keep going down this list, Daniel.
Right, so we've got your press release. If you have done a press release, obviously for a story like the Miley Cyrus shoes, you would not do a press release for that. But some of these bigger cases we talked about, you would. And if you're using one of the, typically the paid press release tools have some really nice metrics that you can look at, and you can see how your press release is trending, when it's getting clicks, when it's getting views, and you can kind of see when it peaks and starts to drop off. And that's a good indication for you about the public's interest in the story. So if you're monitoring those press release metrics, that's going to let you know kind of when it's hot and when it's played out. And there's a lot of different, the examples we have here are the kind of stats that we get from PR Web. This is the kind of data you can see from them. And this may vary a little depending on your provider. But again, the key is to take a look at how it's working and if people are actually clicking through. And again, when that story starts to die off, it's a good way to keep an eye on what's going on. Social media, of course, you want to see who's coming to your site from your social media posts that you're doing about these topics. And I will share with you that for our clients, for attorneys and doctors, we found that Facebook is hands down gets the most visits. So you definitely want to make sure you have a good Facebook strategy and you're focusing on Facebook. Twitter is number 2, and then Google Plus for us is the 3rd as far as the number of referrals that folks get. But again, you can see this information in analytics. You should know where your traffic's coming from to know what's working and what isn't. And again, if you're pushing your videos out to YouTube so that people can search for them out there, remembering that YouTube is the 2nd largest search engine, you want to monitor your YouTube channel and see if people are viewing your video, and also take a look for comments, because people may start a dialogue on your video and you want to make sure you're there to interact. And obviously, always respond in a polite and professional way, but do keep an eye on your YouTube channel. And then contacts. If folks are coming to your website, there's a good chance they're going to fill out a form, and you want to know what page they were on when that happened. So again, you know which of your pages on your website are converting. And if folks are picking up the phone and calling, make sure that your intake specialists, the folks who answer the phone, know that you're doing some marketing, know that you're doing breaking news, so that they can ask. Let's say somebody calls about a sexual abuse case, and you've just done a breaking release about a big sex abuse scandal. You'll want your intake person to find out if that's how they heard about you. So make sure that everybody in the office knows what's going on so that they can help you gather these kind of statistics.
That's a great point, and I just echo that, because the worst thing is when somebody calls up and says, oh, I just saw you did this and this, and your person is answering the phone, has no clue what they're talking about, and actually acts like they don't know what they're talking about. We've heard that before. So make sure that the intake person is ready for this. They are part of the campaign. And if you don't do that, then all your money is being thrown away. The best idea in the world won't work if your buyer or your contact is confused or belittled by the intake person. And we've seen it, so don't let it happen to you. All right, what's next here, Daniel? I think we're just about done, right? Yes, we are good. Now, listen, we will send this out to everybody, and of course, we will have it on the website for everybody to watch again. I know we went over time, but this is a good information. This is really where the best lawyers and the best doctors are getting their best cases. And if you want to get off the hamster wheel of trying to get on page one and pay-per-click and worrying about that stuff, this is where the big dogs are getting their cases. And we've got two of some of the biggest dogs on the planet in more ways than one on this call with Brian and Dave. And I encourage you, and they would, you know, answer, to contact them and ask them how it works for them. I mean, Brian is very busy, and Brian, I appreciate you getting on the call. I know that you're, you know, taking off to go here and this client, going this oil rig guy over here and this guy over here, and Dave had to reshuffle his schedule today to accommodate this. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for your help and working with us to make this breaking news program so successful. And so I hope that these tips and this information will be helpful to you guys that are do-it-yourselfers and that want to go out and do it yourself. Just make sure that you provide a quality product. You think about all the things that we talked about here. And yes, we'll be sending out the presentation. Mike will get all that information out to everybody. And then if you feel that you need some help with this, we do have a breaking news program, which is a one-shot deal. So if there's an opportunity, you can send it to us or shoot us an email and say, is this worthy? And we'll tell you whether we think it's worthy or not of a breaking news post. Or maybe help you understand a little better to turn it into a breaking news post. But we offer those services. They're $3,500 a pop. All you have to do is shoot us an email about something. We'll take care of the rest, communicate with you. That includes a video shoot with our spokesmodel, a 48-hour turnaround for the whole thing, by the way. Blog posts, articles, press releases, landing pages as necessary. So we basically help you set up the whole campaign, work with you to get this thing up and running, and then provide you measurement afterwards. And so then this link right here, which we'll send out, is more examples that we couldn't really get into today of other ways of doing breaking news, other clients that have done it. So listen, everybody, and we're here to help you either by educating you how to do it yourself or helping you do it for you if you simply don't have the time. So both of these guys, one does it himself, Brian, we help him with most of it. He just is the face man and gets up there and does this stuff on TV. So any questions that you have, let us know. We're here to help you, and we just want to make you the most successful. Our successful clients mean that we're being successful. And you got to get off the whole seduction of that keyword stuff. That doesn't work anymore. Stay away from all that. Don't waste your money. This is where you should be focusing your time. Okay, I think that's it. Brian, Dave, Danielle, Michael, Connie, thank you very much for the webinar. And Snowmageddon, I know that we had some audio issues. I probably sound warbly right now, but that's the way it is. At least we were able to put it on, and I'm going to dig myself out of here. So thanks to everybody, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.